Okay. So the goal of this video is to talk about how to determine the number of sig figs or the number of significant figures. Give me a second. Here we go. Let's not overthink this. The first thing, why should you care about this? Basically, the number of sig figs that you use on a number implies how precise that number is. And that could affect the price if you're trying to have a component designed and you send out some information, say, please design this, and you list the number of sig figs, that might affect the price. Other reasons, basically, if you use 2 sig figs, you're not being precise enough. Too many sig figs, you're implying you know something very, very precisely when perhaps you don't. In short, you care because the number of sig figs you use implies something to the reader, and that means something. And that's it. The rules, non-zeros, like a 2 or a 3 or some number, they're always significant. Always. What if you had, so for example, let's say you had 234. None of those are zeros, so they're all significant. This number has 3 sig figs. Okay. What about zeros between non-zeros? So we've handled all non-zeros. Now it's basically, notice all the effort is figuring out if 0 is significant. But what if you have, these are in between, so they're always significant. So if you had 204, this is a 0 between 2 non-zeros, they're significant. 3 sig figs. Okay. So non-zeros, zeros between non-zeros. Here's a 0 between 2 non-zeros, always significant. Leading zeros, never significant. So a leading 0 is a number that comes at the beginning. These usually come in the form of 0.00357, let's say. These numbers are called leading zeros because they're at the leading edge of the number. Never significant. So in this case, right here, this would be 3 sig figs again. All right. Trailing zeros. This is the hard one. You have to think. They are sometimes significant. Here is the rule that you have to learn. That's a long rule. If at least one trailing 0 is to the right of the decimal, then all trailing zeros are significant. That's crazy. Let me give you some examples on this one. All right, and just to mix it up, let's use a different color. So let's say you have 2. Oh, that was not working too well. Let's say we have 230, or how about 2,340? As written, this is a trailing 0. Okay, it's at the right end of the number. That is a trailing 0. In this case, there's only one trailing 0, and it is to the left of the decimal. So it is not significant. So that means this particular number has 3 sig figs. the non-zeros are significant. This trailing zero to the left of the decimal, not significant. But what if I did this number? Now we have two trailing zeros. At least one, not both of them, but at least one is to the left of the decimal point. They're all significant. So notice in this case, there are actually, these are both significant. These are non-zero, so significant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. And then just to give you some to practice, let's maybe go to the other board. I'll write up some on the board for you to practice. Let's go to here. All right. All right. So I have some examples here. I'm going to write them up. Okay, so all we're trying to do is identify the number of sig figs. If you'd like, pause the video really quick, write down what you think the answers are. I'm going to do it as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write them down again. You wanted to hit pause, that's fine. In this case, this one is between. So this is non-zero, non-zero, significant, between, that's also significant, that's 4 sig figs. So I'm just going to put a sig fig column here. This is a trailing zero. It's at the right end of the number. It's to the right of the decimal point. Significant. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is also a trailing zero, but it is to the left of the decimal point. No trailing zeros appear to the right. We assume this is not significant. So that's, 3 sig figs. This one, again, in between significant, don't have to think, it's not leading, it's not trailing, it's significant. 4. All right, let's go over to these. We'll use a different color. Fun. So that's going to be the number of sig figs. Sorry, it's a little cut off there. All right, now we have both leading and trailing zeros. Leading, never significant. Trailing, and at least one to the right of decimal, significant, significant, 3 sig figs. Okay, and then just to be clear, this is a leading, these are trailing. Okay, leading, not significant, trailing, significant if one is to the right of the decimal. Okay, here, leading, not significant, trailing, and end to the right of a decimal point. Significant, significant, not significant, 2 sig figs. These, leading, not significant. There's only 1 sig fig. This one, trailing, at least 1 to the right, all significant, that's 3. Trailing, at least one to the right, not all of them, but at least one is, right? That means this is significant and this is between, all right, so there we go. That's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one, this is trailing, 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 but none of them are to the right of the decimal. None of these trailers are significant, therefore there's only one sig fig. Finally, this one. Trailing, trailing, trailing. Because this one is to the right of the decimal, this trailing 0 becomes significant. Everything is significant then. 1, 2, 3, 4. This begs the question, which you might be thinking about in your head. What if I wanted to have a number like this that has trailing zeros, and I want to indicate that one of these trailing zeros is actually significant? A trick that you can see is to underline. So this is a trick that I will use. Maybe not everybody in the world does this, but when I do this, this underline means okay. And we can go back to one of our rules. Because this is a significant figure and this is a significant figure, zeros between significant figures are also significant. I believe the rule I had stated earlier was technically non-zeros. I'll go back over to that rule here. I'll go to that rule and clarify that in a minute. So what we see is this is significant. This is significant, and what I'm saying is because this comes between two significant figures, this is also significant. So this is 3 sig figs. So that is a way you can specify sig figs if you have trailing zeros to the left of the decimal. That's a trick. So these two would be significant. These two would not. And let's go back to our rule just so I can show you that how to modify that rule to accommodate this. The idea right here, I could actually modify this rule to say zeros between significant figures. So obviously non-zeros are significant, but if you have zeros between a significant zero and a non-zero, that would also work. And just to show you again, that's what I was saying right here. Whoops. What I was saying. Once this one becomes significant, you can treat it like a non-zero. And then these ones are significant. This one is significant because it's between two significant. I think that's enough on that.